Welcome, everyone, to the Next Best Picture podcast, where we are talking with Miguel Gomes, the writer and director of Grand Tour. Miguel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to talk with you about this fascinating film, which the premise comes from a short passage in a W. Somerset Maugham book about his travels across Asia. I'm curious, what was it about that passage that inspired you to make a film about it?
Well, it was the general situation you have in the film. This story of a couple, of this guy that is running from his bride, and she's after him, and he's living in Burma in 1918, and he panicked. He panicked. It's not very well developed in the Somerset Maugham book, which is a travelogue. It's about his own journeys in the Southeast Asia. But there are these 3 pages, as you mentioned, where he says, okay, I met this strange guy in Mandalay, a British guy, and he told me what happened just before he got married. And so he was escaping to this woman, and the woman that was supposed to marry him came from London in a boat to get married, and he disappeared. But she was very stubborn, so she came after him. And they crossed countries, mountains, jungles, and in this strange game of escaping and pursuing.
So, what was it about that really spoke to you the most? I guess, is it the sort of unrequited romance of it all? Is it the hopping around the different cities in Asia? What was it that most inspired you to try to make this into a film?
I'll be honest with you. I was about to get married at the time I
Mm.
was, so I thought I can relate with this. Or maybe my wife, my future wife, can also relate to this. So I shared these 3 pages with her, and we left. Of course, it was a joke about men being coward and the woman being stubborn. But in a way, we were about to do a radical thing. I think it's a little bit radical today to get married. So in a way, it concerned us, and of course, I thought it would be an amazing departure point for a film. I mean, all the space they travel for this very kind of light drama, which is I'm not sure if I want to get married. So yeah, I'll will disappear. And she saying, no, I will not give up. And of course, I will marry him. It's a little bit silly, but as every, silly silly things have a great potential to do for films, for creating cinema, from the most light or silly thing you can have a great. So why Edward will travel thousands of kilometers of miles to escape a woman? Is she a monster? And why Molly will give the trouble to do the same, to marry a guy that apparently is not willing to be with her? This is a mystery. I didn't solve that mystery. I've done the film. I've directed the film. I talked with the actors. I directed every sequence in the film. And even now, I don't have an answer. And that's not bad about why they are doing this. But I think it's fascinating.
Absolutely. And humans are fascinating, complex creatures who do not always do things that make logical sense. So that makes sense in a way. Um, I know that all this the narrative of Edward and Molly's story is broken up and enhanced by footage that you shot and supervised in the present day in your own sort of grand tour through Asia. Was the plan always to use that footage in that way, or was it initially just for research and you found so many wonderful things that you had to use it?
No, it was decided from the beginning that we would have in the film the sequences with the actors, with Molly and Edward, the characters played by these two actors, in shot in studio. And in the studio, the action story would take place in 1918. But at the same time, we would have the places they are traveling through today in the present, which is like the future of the characters. Or if it's like you think that like the travelogue, the past is the story that happens in studio. And why? You know, in a strange way, I think there's like a film that obsesses me in the history of cinema, and it's this film is called The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is about this girl called Dorothy, and she lives in Kansas in the countryside. And she goes by a tornado or something. She goes to a different land, a land over the rainbow, and it's called Oz, but in fact it's cinema. It's the world of cinema. So this film, The Wizard of Oz, is dealing with something which is okay. Cinema can, film people's life, the daily life, our the things, the people we know, and yeah, it has this capacity of shooting our lives and how we live our lives, but it also can make up a parallel world, a world that with its own rules that can only exist because cinema exists, and that's the world of cinema. It's us. And so this is like the two different potentials of cinema, the two different in the range of possibilities of cinema. Cinema can shoot reality, and it can make up a different world with different rules. And so, in a way, in this film, in other films I've made, I think I've made, remakes, strange Portuguese remakes of The Wizard of Oz, which means films that are dealing with reality, with our, daily lives in the most, practical or, way. And on the other hand, so with reality, and on the other hand, with a parallel world, with a world, for instance, that you can only create in studio that doesn't look like reality because it's a different reality. And to put these two different worlds in dialogue, giving something to each other. So how reality affects this kind of world of cinema in the most classical way, like in in Oz, how reality affect us, how us can also change reality. This is something that I really care about, and in this film, I'm dealing with this in some way.
That's it's a really fascinating connection that I would not have necessarily made on my own, but you're absolutely right in how those noting those parallels. Um, there are several different languages spoken on screen in this film, French and Portuguese, English, many different Asian languages. So, and I'm a little curious as to what led to the decision to have the film's narration be in Asian languages as opposed to Western languages, like the people who are going on this journey speak.
Yeah, I could. tell you that it was because of trying to make justice, because there are many films about, the Roman Empire, or, where the characters, they speak English. So in a way to be, like payback time. So let's put, the Asian narrating what happened with this a little bit lost Western characters. But I have to be honest with you. So cinema, it's not only made with ideas, but also with very practical things. So the voiceover was written during the editing of the film. It was in the last moment of the film that we were writing, the voiceover, and and editing the film at the same time. And so our what we would do in these days of editing, we would edit a little bit, and then we would write. Me and the screenwriters would come to the editing room, and we would, write the voiceover sentences, and then ourselves or someone in the office where we were working, we would ask them, okay, can you record a sentence or two, just to us to see how it is working in this editing. And so many different people came, and so I started to like a lot this choral aspect of the voiceover, not only have like an official neutral voiceover like the chief of the voiceover, but to have like many voices. It was like a chorus thing, and it was getting more interesting for me. And one of the voices was my wife, that also is also one of the screenwriters of the film, and she's French. She speaks a good Portuguese, but she has an accent. And so once the editor of the film was telling, I really like Maureen's voice. It's her name. This accent, this French accent. And I said, well, we don't need a French accent. I think we need Asian people of the places they are going to tell this story. So I don't know. Eventually, I think we would get to this idea, but it came by the accent of one of the people that was recording this voiceover.
A sort of happy accident, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, I believe a lot in happy accidents.
Yeah, that's good. They can really make or break these things. They can make a huge difference sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
you also have bad days, but I
of
think there's
course.
more good days than bad days when you try these kind of things.
Yeah. I there's a sequence very early on in the film that I dearly enjoyed where Edward receives a telegram from Molly and you iris in on this telegram. And then for the next several shots, we're just seeing bits of the screen in these little circles, these irises, which is such a fun way to reference, the old cinematic storytelling. But I'm curious where the idea for that little jumping around the scene with these spots came from.
Well, it's also a process because we decided to make one iris during the shooting. So I proposed to the cinematographer and the camera crew to create this iris and to do it on camera, which means not put it on the editing in the end, but just to have like it's like a plate with a hole, and you just approach it to the lens of the camera, and it will make the iris. Because we were shooting this sequence, and I wanted to have like only one shot. It's an open shot, but there's a moment where the character isolates itself because he's reading this telegram. So at that moment, I would cut from the more wide shot and to have like a normal, close-ups of the letter is reading and his reaction and things like this, or I would have to come up with the kind of trying to isolate this thing without doing like normal editing. So I came up with this idea, and then in the editing, we decided, okay, let's bring this a little bit further. So the first iris is for real made on the studio. The next ones are editing room iris, but let's have this iris moving and to see more details, and then we'll get back to the wide shot of the situation of the scene.
It's a lot of fun, and I like again that you're sort of having these ideas come out of practicality, but they work so well within the whole fabric and texture of the film. It's wonderful. And I know we're coming up soon on the end of our time together, but I wanted to ask, because these sort of Western Europeans abroad in exotic places, sort of travelogues in literature and in cinema, they generally seem to not go well for the people doing the exploring. And so, but a lot of that is because of how life was different back in the early 1900s than they are now. We have much more preparations medically and all these things to take care of us when we're in foreign countries. But I'm curious what you think the relevance of these stories to the present day is when so much has changed in terms of how we travel.
Yeah, I think one of the things we lost from back then is that the world today looks completely discovered. So I think things were different in many ways. Also politically, the perception we had at these times, and you can have a big list, come up with a big list of things that were different. So some are much better today, I think. But one of the things that was different, and this is not so good, is that the world looked bigger at that moment. And there was, I think it's the world and also cinema, they come together. There was a moment where the potential of amazement of things, of discovering things, was bigger. Now we know too much. There are thousands of millions of trillions of selfies. You go to Google Maps and they pop up, and you have the idea everything is as already an image. You cannot be, amazed by discovering something because it's everything is already seen, and we lost this. We lost this kind of innocence. We know too much. We have seen too much now, and so one of the things I wanted to do in this film was trying to, how can we get back to a little bit of this amazement of discovering the world, of seeing things that can amuse us or astound us with its beauty and its grace, and because even if the world is a kind of a lousy place, let's be realistic, it's very pretty much lousy, and but there's also some beauty. There's still some beauty, and I think cinema. One of the things I love in cinema since I was a kid was the things cinema shared with me about the beauty and graceful things about life and about the world. And so, in a way, I think one of my obligations as a director is to try to capture this grace in some way and to share it with the viewer. Um, so, this kind of stories, in a way, yeah, it was an opportunity for me to go to a far place from where I live in Europe, in Portugal. Um, but of course, we cannot do the same as like Sternberg was doing in Hollywood in the 30s, Lady of Shanghai and Shanghai Express with Dietrich and all these wonderful films. But it's a different world today, so I cannot just pretend to be Sternberg and to go into a studio. I have to confront this kind of world with reality, with things I can shoot in Japan and in Vietnam and in these countries, and then do something with it and share with an audience.
It's a really wonderful, thoughtful note to end on, and I think kind of a perfect one considering the film. And so thank you so much again for speaking with us today, and thank you for your work on this film.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.